trade war fears spooking global stocks. U.S. markets are mixed this hour, but after yesterday's sell-off, the Dow, S&P, and NASDAQ are all still flirting with correction territory. For more now, we're joined by the Pulitzer Prize winner, New York Times columnist Jim Stewart. It's good to see you again.
Nice to be here.
Yesterday was quite a day, right? Down 700, and everybody seemingly talking about China and a trade war.
Well, there was a lot to absorb. There was, the renewed trade war fears. There's the interest rate statement. There's the cracking of the FANG stocks over the Facebook thing. And then you have more turmoil in the White House. I mean, what more can you put on the table for one day?
Let's add the spending bill. And the fact that there's going to be so much money that's going to put pressure potentially on treasuries, right? Who's going to buy all that supply? This is coming from every direction.
A cliffhanger we don't need. But I will say, I thought one of the biggest pieces of news yesterday that didn't get nearly as much attention is that even as he's, imposing tariffs on China, he basically undid most of the steel tariffs. He suddenly, in one fell swoop, exempted all of the U.S. so-called allies, including South Korea.
That's right.
We've now got the biggest importers of steel or exporters into the U.S. exempt from the tariffs, which, if you believe in free trade, is great. But I think the market really didn't absorb that as much with fears over China.
The steel stocks may have known that, because if you went back and looked at that week, from the day that Trump made this big surprise announcement, this is what I'm going to do, to when they were actually implemented, all the steel stocks were down, right? They didn't get anything out of that move. So there was a foreshadowing that maybe this was going to be weakened, but the market's still very worried about the China situation.
Well, China is our second biggest trading partner after the European Union, and if China, wants to slap big tariffs, especially on our agricultural products, that's going to start to hurt. I mean, again, I think nobody really wins a trade war. I think history suggests that. I've done a lot of research on it in the last few weeks, and it's very hard to find anyone who wins one of these things. Now, maybe Trump is going to get some leverage with them to negotiate over the trade secret issues, the theft of intellectual property. That is a real issue with China that needs to be addressed. I think everybody agrees with that. Slapping on tariffs, though, is a very, crude way of going at it, and it's going to hurt U.S. consumers, no question about it.
I mentioned a tweet earlier that Ian Bremmer of the Eurasia Group put out, saying that this was the biggest single day for geopolitical risk, maybe combining the China tariffs, Bolton getting his job, since the Eurasia Group was founded in '98. I mean, do you feel like we're on the precipice of that level of risk?
Well, not really. I don't think we should exaggerate this. It's very hard to know with President Trump how much of it is posturing, how much is his, unique negotiating style, how much is kind of, talking tough one day and then quietly cutting some kind of deal on the next. So, I don't think there's any reason for panic or worry that we're on the abyss. But, look, there are a lot of uncertainties here, and the market has been priced for very good news. The technology stocks especially have been priced for, tremendous growth going ahead. And as I've said many times on this show, an occasional correction is not a bad thing. And the longer markets go without one, the worse they tend to be.
It does feel like we have shifted, though, from tailwinds to headwinds in a very big way. And what do you think about what's happened with Facebook in the last week? What do you think about the response from Mark Zuckerberg and Sheryl Sandberg? Was that enough? It seems inevitable that their inherent business model is very much at risk. They are able to charge money because they know your data. And now it looks like they're going to be able to monetize that data less, either because of their own choosing or because somebody's going to make them do that.
Well, I think their response this week shows that they were surprised. They were, they weren't prepared for this. They have really been behind this curve when it comes to data security. They've got all this R&D. They have got to pour something into this. They say, well, we're going to find a way of stopping this. We're going to prevent this. Well, how? And where is there a technological answer to this? I'm not an expert enough to know the answer, but they better start coming up with some convincing answers pretty soon. At the same time, the Facebook model is very powerful. Look, users are saying, well, maybe we're going to boycott it. Well, let's see about that. I mean, the Facebook users I know, they can't really do without it. They're on that thing all the time. And where else are you going to go? It is like a natural monopoly. Right? So I think the users are going to stay there. The question is, can they continue to grow the advertising by using this very highly tailored data? Look, I think there's a way out of this for them, but it's going to be, I think the lofty growth, pie in the sky expectations for the next, 9 months to a year are going to have to be toned down.
I want to, before we let you go, discuss your column, because I think it's a topic that a lot of people are kicking around and maybe having a hard time with. And this is Martin Shkreli versus Elizabeth Holmes. As you say, two frauds, two divergent outcomes. excuse me, were they fair?
Well, exactly. And when I read the SEC complaint on Elizabeth Holmes, the Theranos founder, it's an astonishing fraud. It's like you read count, 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 count. It's lie, lie, lie. Fake demonstrations. I mean, it was the magnitude.
They even used the words massive fraud.
It's
right?
massive. They did not use that word lightly. And when you read the details, it was truly massive. And one way that it was massive is that based on this, edifice of falsehoods, she and her, co-defendant, they raised over $700 million from investors. So, okay, Martin Shkreli, nobody likes Martin Shkreli for good reason. He's a bizarre guy. He got sentenced to 7 years in jail. He paid all his investors back. Many of the investors made millions. That doesn't excuse the fact that allegedly he defrauded some of them out of about 10 million. Okay, we've got 10 million Shkreli, 7 years. 700 million Elizabeth Holmes. So far, Elizabeth Holmes has been barred from being an officer of a public company, pays $500,000 fine. She's still the CEO and chairman of Theranos, and that's it. Now, she could still be charged, but settling the SEC case usually means, well, there's not much happening on the criminal front. But we'll see. But no, I don't think that's fair.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty telling. That I thought one of the most interesting things in the entire column was the quote from Shkreli's lawyer, Braffman. I've never had a client who did more to hurt his own standing with the court than Martin Shkreli. His behavior and comments probably added several years to his sentence.
Well, Shkreli basically confronted the prosecutors, taunted the prosecutors, impugned the justice system, attacked law enforcement. Now, does that sound familiar? Is there anybody else who might be learning a lesson or two from this? I'm not going to say any more about it. But the lesson here is, do not take on the prosecutors and the government outside the courtroom. Leave that to your lawyers. He was outrageous. I mean, his bail was revoked after he advertised on Facebook he'd pay $5,000 for a hair from Hillary Clinton, which they interpreted as an invitation to assault her. Now, he thought that was funny. Even if he did, that's something he should have kept to himself.
Maybe he wanted to test her DNA or something.
Jim, thanks as always.
Sure. Great to be here.
Hey there, thanks for checking out CNBC on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all of the day's biggest stories. You can also click on any of the videos around me to watch the latest from CNBC. Thanks for watching.